Hi, welcome back to Cambridge Inside Out. I'm Judy Nathans.
And I'm Robert Winters.
Yes, in our little alcoves.
That's right.
Little
That's
Zoom rooms, whatever.
Exactly. So a few more items from
Yes.
last night and really carrying over from prior meetings that were, I
Big
guess
ones.
you could call it.
Well, green roofs, legal, and something else.
All right. So they passed the green roofs petition on, I think it was a 6-3. Yeah, it was actually, it's interesting. So this was about putting vegetated roofs on buildings over a certain number of square feet, with a lot of exemptions for municipal buildings, which was itself a point of controversy.
Which is why Alana did not vote for it.
Right. So do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, so there was that, and I think there were some of the like MIT and Harvard were saying like, look, we need to have a solar option here. You know, if you're asking us just to put a bunch of moss on the roof here.
No, but Sarah Gallup, they already have a vegetative roof on something. I forget, but she was saying we are doing certain things, and
they are doing certain things, but there is
give us some leeway. Yeah.
I mean, this is where I really would part company with almost all of these city councilors, which is that I have never been all that strong a fan of absolute rigid.
You have to do this. Right.
Yeah, rigid mandates are like budget earmarks, where you say this amount of money will be dedicated toward this. It leads to inefficiency and poor choices.
Yeah,
I think you have to give flexibility. I was kind of hoping as part of this whole process that the planning board noted when they voted 8-1 against the green roofs petition that the city's already has an ongoing study on how to sort of do it right. And in some respects, this was jumping the gun. And I kind of agree. I would have preferred more of like a rating system where you say, okay, how can I, kind of like the way LEED standards work, said you're actually given a kind of a menu of ways in which you can meet a standard, but you're not rigidly required to do things one way.
Did you listen to public comment? It was interesting. You had Jan Devereaux, who was given extra time because she's a city councilor, and then you had Henrietta Davis, who didn't need the extra time when they wanted to over. I know, two opposing kind of views.
Right, but however, if you actually listen to the rhetoric, the spoken rhetoric, it was pretty clear that there was some orchestration.
Okay, all right.
They've been all saying the same things. I've been on the net zero task force, gonna do it, So it was all sort of part of a coordinated campaign.
Isn't a lot of public comment is anyway. I mean, I'm not objecting.
I know
to that.
It's theater.
I know, but I was glad to hear it.
Yeah, all right.
I mean, we haven't heard it before, and it was good to have some different.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
but in the end, it was it needed 6 votes to pass, and it got 6 votes.
Yeah.
So it's passed. So it's ordained. With all the exemptions for affordable housing and municipal buildings.
Okay, so just let me ask you, because that was confusing to me. I was trying to look at the changes. So they cannot just do a solar option.
I have to go back and read that.
I know it's confusing. I mean, there's the biosolar, which some people say is not a real thing, or it is a real thing. I mean, they're always going to have people support whatever view you want, especially if you're in the business of doing this stuff. But
personally, the one part of it that I like to think long, when you own a building, as I do, you think long term is like, okay, 30 years from now, what will I be worrying about, right? And they say, oh, these are much lower maintenance. No, they actually talk very actively about budgeting a certain amount of money for maintaining your green roof every year. So it's an ongoing maintenance issue.
And also, if you're talking about growing things like for vegetables, it requires, from what I was looking at other places, a deeper. You can't just have the 3 or 4 inches or whatever you would need for just just for a green roof. And also, you mentioned this, and I couldn't find it. Accessibility. I mean, they talk about it being open space, but open space for people to come up in somebody's private building and go walking around.
Honestly, if I had a green roof, I would want to make it a usable green roof, so that it was sort of a pleasant place to sit.
The only one I've been up, and this was years ago, I think, is it Google? Somebody down in Kendall made something, and I went up there. There's some benches, and it wasn't kept up. It was, I don't know.
But then
I wouldn't go there again.
there was the rooftop garden. It was part
Maybe
of
that's
Kendall
the one.
Square.
Maybe
But
that's
also,
the
if you go in over where the hotels are, University Park,
yeah.
they actually have kind of a mezzanine level grassy area, which is a real
Okay.
attraction, so
All right.
some of these things can actually be really nice places, so
Yeah, and
I think
I think people want to do it. It's just that they don't want to be told you have to do it this way or that way.
that's really the
Yeah.
point, is that I think there are a lot
Yeah.
of property owners who you should give them some incentives to do it. They go, well, we were thinking about it anyway, and just make it worth their while to do it, but we are kind of in a very weird period right now, where people are using the threat of emergency, climate emergency, this emergency.
Well, there is.
Pretty-
I mean, there
right, but
and other cities have done it. Now, I haven't really researched how effective those other things are, because like everything, you have to really look at details. Okay, did they do it? Was there any rescinding of certain things? I mean, the same thing with the commercial compost, when you really looked at the details of that. But I don't know. I think we'll see how it goes. I mean, they can always revisit it, right? Isn't that what it was said?
yeah, I mean, down the road, hopefully we'll see.
Um,
So anyway, that was one thing that is now
Yes.
officially ordained. There were a couple of
Right.
items, actually one item that was not made subject to a charter right or anything, but I think it's an interesting conversation. It seems to be coming back.
But
So much attention when it comes to the housing issues have been
oh, right,
focused on rental housing, affordable rentals and whatever.
right,
But in multiple weeks in a row now, there have been references to affordable home ownership,
right.
and some public commentary, and even some city
Mhm.
council commentary, and some city council candidate commentary, I might add, where
Who
they're
was
saying
that?
like, well,
Oh, Nicola Williams.
Nicola Williams,
Yeah.
to be sure, but Charles Franklin actually, I
Oh,
think,
right, yeah.
really was spot
But he-
on. But he
Yeah.
was pointing out that it said that, if you're basically going to limit equity so much that basically you can't build up any wealth at all, by
Right.
owning property, then all you really are glorified renters at that
Right.
point.
But there's got to be some in between.
Right, and I just think that, right, because you don't want it to say, "Oh, I got a great deal courtesy of the
Well,
city.
did
Now
you
I'm going to get
hear
$1 million."
Tim Toomey mentioned the development? Was that the one I was talking about the other day? The one at Cornelius Way that you said was?
I kind of had a hint that might have been
I think
what they
it
were
was,
talking about. But the
because
thing is, but
yeah.
people need to understand about those were built on the old Boston Woven Hose site on Cardinal
Yeah, but
Madeiras,
they were built
Portland
for
Street.
to be affordable, right?
Right, but the thing is that the way people thought
Oh.
about property and the demand
Back
for
then.
property was very
Okay.
different,
True.
and the
yeah.
type of housing that was even being built, quite honestly, back in the 1960s or whenever those James Way, Michael Way, Cornelius Way were laid out. So they feel like you're like on a suburban track.
Oh, unbelievable. Driveways and single
yeah.
families and
Yeah. So it's very unusual, but at the time, the Cambridge Redevelopment Authority was really behind that, I believe, and they were also building a lot of housing, which I think is a mix of rental and home ownership opportunities
okay.
out along Webster Ave. So if you go out Webster Ave,
Right.
it's cut off, or it used to go straight through, and they put in these like nice little homes.
So they
So-
they weren't income based then. They were just open to the market, or
I don't really know, but the
'cause
thing
that would
is
make a
that
big difference. I mean,
but
you think of it, yeah.
the attaching of strings, which we are seeing is
Mhm.
sort of the routine now, was not always the routine. It was sort of
Okay,
like we're
but-
just creating
but then you-
opportunities for people.
Okay, but we create opportunities. If you're giving people money for down payments, is it just then basically a gift? And then you could do with it, because I
You know,
guess you have to look at it that way.
I think the way it's structured is not to my liking. Actually would prefer that the city help with covering mortgages and
Yeah.
second mortgages, and there are some of these like home bridge programs. I think that's actually part of their intention.
Yeah, but then
But-
somebody said that the Homebridge program is terrible. I think it was Nicola Williams. I don't know.
Well, there are a
enough
lot of
about
people
it.
aren't buying
Yeah.
into it because the strings are it's
too
too much,
limited, right.
too much limitation. In my view, if you regardless how you come to become a homeowner, whether it's through city help or whatever, and if you're there for a couple decades, at some point I'd say you should be free and clear. It's yours now, and if you want to,
Yeah, a couple decades, then it's different than if you're told.
if you're buying, holding
Right.
it for a couple of years, and
That's
then
right.
doubling your money, that would be wrong. Yes.
So maybe
So-
it should be based on longevity. How long do you keep this house?
Right.
And maybe
One of the
the
city
longer you
council,
keep it, the more you benefit.
right.
Yeah, I don't know.
the limited equity model that we seem to use seems
Mhm.
to be, in terms of what are the limitations, it seems more like a vestige of the rent control era view of what allowable increases should be,
Right,
which
but
are
then
very
the next,
limited.
right, but then the next person though, uh, they should be allowed to make some kind of profit, but then if you want to keep that with it affordable for the next person, you have to have some kind of control over it,
Right.
Robert. I
Well,
mean, I just,
one of the city councilors actually said, well, we
yeah,
should put some sort of cap, but the thing is it shouldn't just be
okay,
2%. I mean, but if you
okay,
say,
right, no, I agree with that, I guess,
I
yeah.
think it's just, I don't know what's the right here. I
I
just
don't
think that
either.
it is a topic ripe for review,
Yep.
because honestly, if you really believe that, people from certain communities who did not previously have as much access to
Oh, they were denied
creating
loans
family
or
wealth,
whatever, right, or
you
just they
know,
were denied loans
and
because
now
of who they were,
its
yeah.
city policy is to continue to deny them wealth creation, then I think there's a conversation that needs to be had there,
Okay,
honestly,
but I
you
think
know.
that's really
But yeah, I know, but
reading it
this,
very generally.
this city is still, it's so hardwired into rigid control of everything. And I don't, it's hard for
But you
me.
know, a lot of the funding sources create that too. It's not just city, I mean, federal,
It's
I mean,
true.
all, it's
It's true.
very limited. You have to do this, they have to do
Well,
that.
and we'll
So
see what
that's a
happens
lot of
with
it,
this. There was a big order
right?
that was made subject to the charter right that they moved
Which one?
along they modified it a little bit, but
Oh,
having to do with a $500 million bond,
right,
right?
that,
To create
and then, right, the need,
affordable home ownership
right.
opportunities, right?
Oh, it's a bond. I didn't realize that.
Well, it would have to be, yeah.
I see,
And
I
anyway,
see.
so I don't know what'll happen with that. I don't know what the response will be from the city manager, but that'll be an interesting conversation to be sure. And hopefully, maybe if the council is pushing for intervention of that scale, maybe that will
Mm.
trigger
Yeah,
some of the people in the community development housing division to actually rethink some things.
yeah.
Because honestly, just basically coughing up over $500,000 to create one unit
Mhm,
to hand over is
mhm.
about as
Right.
that is my definition of inefficiency. There are much better ways to actually facilitate housing ownership than simply just dropping $500,000 per unit. So anyway, I hope there's a good conversation that grows out of that.
I would
Uh,
like, yeah, go ahead. I was gonna, I thought the one about EV,
yeah, so actually,
although,
so
yeah.
that's relatively quick, but the thing, I like that. It's an interesting conversation.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm in the process of, as you know,
Getting a car,
buying a car, but it
and you'll
is a
probably
gas.
have it for a long time.
Oh, in spite of what Patty Nolan said, which is
No, no,
that,
no.
this,
Well, no, I had to look that up because I thought she said that there'd be no gas vehicles allowed in
no, just
2035.
sold.
No,
Yeah.
sold. So that, most people keep, I have my cars an average of 10 to 12 years. So there's going to
Yeah.
be a lot of gas cars out there. They're not going to get rid of gas
Well,
stations,
I've had my last car
you
for
know.
20, so hopefully this
Right.
next
And
one will be good.
you're right. You're
So
not, maybe
I'm
that's
gonna hopefully
typical.
be still driving it right beyond the non-existence of
Right.
gas stations.
Right.
We'll be creating our own gasoline out of
No, I think
peanut
it's going to be a
oil.
long way before you don't, it won't go the way the phone booths have
No, I
gone.
don't think, right. These are not like rigid,
But I mean, it is true that
throw a
EV, I
switch.
mean, first of all, the people, I don't think that, they say, oh, electric cars. Where is the electricity coming from? It's still coming from natural gas, a lot of it.
A lot of it is right now, but of course they want to change that.
Well, no, I
But
mean, that is going to change, and I'm all for it. It's just that let's not fool ourselves that
even if you
any
have a lot,
energy has its,
right,
cost
but it's,
involved.
you're still going to need backup generation,
Yeah.
certainly on
And you need a driveway at this
on a
point. I mean,
cloudy day,
yeah.
solar is diminished.
Well,
On
I
a
read
still
something,
day, wind is diminished.
and I read something about California because so many people with the EV that it actually, when they were having power problems, it was the power, it was affecting the grid. But the point is, until most people have a driveway or, even with all the rebates, I would never get in a vehicle that I didn't know how, I would be so anxious. I'm anxious anyway if I'm on a highway, anyway, in a car. And if you don't know, and I know they have all these gas, the electric, I'm just saying it's going to be a while before the average person embracing
I'm,
all this.
I put a link in my latest sort of snarky comments on the council meeting of a Phil Oakes song called "My Kingdom
I
for a
saw that.
Car."
I went to that. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
I have to
Yeah.
say this,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I'm not trying to be mean about climate change.
Oh,
and
by
all
the
of
way, a
that.
car still has to park somewhere, whether it's
Cars,
electric or not.
well, unless it's a autonomous vehicle,
Oh, well, that don't
But-
even go there. I haven't heard any mention of those.
but
things.
but there are, for many people across the country, and for some of us personally, there have been times where a car equals freedom. It
Oh,
does. It gives
as a
you the
single
freedom.
woman, as a independence, I'm sorry. To me,
Yeah,
learning to drive and driving a car is like, yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't know.
there is a trend amongst people below a certain age to sort
Oh,
of
that's right. They don't
relinquish
need
those freedoms.
right. That's true. Or they
But-
don't need it because they're
Well,
really
and that's a
busy,
different
whatever.
type of freedom too.
That's
You
right.
don't have to
That's right.
worry about the burden of home ownership or the burden of owning a vehicle or anything like
Right.
that, right?
Right.
But for those of us who I've lived out of my vehicle for 50 straight days, when I traveled across the country,
Mhm.
and then you think about how that would change if in fact you're limited to go X number of miles, and then you had to stop, and it took, I don't know how long it takes to charge electric
Well,
vehicles.
until they get to a point where it's fast charge, you're right, because you have to sit there.
Yeah,
But
but
it
there
will,
are
it will happen. It's not going to happen
well,
in the next
right, there
5
are
years,
physical
yeah.
limitations on how fast you
Yeah.
can charge anything.
Well, there's fast charge, there's all level 3 chargers, whatever. Again, if you have your
Right.
driveway and you can charge overnight, you're set for about 200 miles. So, but that's
Right, so
not
so
everybody. Yeah,
and I'm sure all of those city councilors with driveways
they have them.
will, I know it,
Jan
they will
has
be
one,
they will be
Clinton has
passing
one, yeah.
laws that will
Yeah.
be very beneficial to people with driveways or people living in condo complexes with reserved parking spaces. Those of us who
Well, that's
park on
true.
the street.
The three,
you
the
know.
councils that all have their own homes with driveways.
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah. I know. I always love it when, people who actually have off-street parking argue about the need, why should you people be able to store your vehicles out on the road? Well, maybe because I'm not as wealthy as you are, buddy, So anyway, or maybe I wasn't as wealthy
Just-
when I bought my house. and
Yeah,
had
all right. I
no
live in the
option.
city where there's like
Yeah.
not many people have driveways.
Exactly. Anyway, I do think that's an interesting thing in terms of long-term planning.
You'll see what
I
happens
imagine
with that.
there will be a day when every parking garage will have hookups and all that, but they're going to still have to
yeah.
figure out something for the schmoes like me who are out on the street if ever I should get an electric car. So,
First of all, you're never going to get an electric car. This, I think, is your last vehicle. You'll have it for another 14 years.
oh no,
No,
That
but it's a
sounds so
Honda.
dreadful.
It's a Honda. It has low mileage. I mean,
I know.
they go forever,
I hope so. Yeah. So anyway, that was one interesting thing. The other one, which I found it was interesting, was yet another play from last summer was the defund the police crowd, right? So there was a thing about from a couple of councilors, most notably Sabrina Wheeler and Zondervan, the revolutionaries, basically want to overthrow, get rid of all rifles and the Lenko Bearcat and produce a plan, Mr. Police Commissioner, telling you how and when you're going to dispose of all of these things. I'm thinking to myself, and really, is that right? Anyway, thankfully, cooler heads prevailed. There was an amended version submitted, I believe, by
Mark McGovern. Mm-hmm.
That basically said, well, come back with a plan, tell her what your intentions are. And there was a little more respect for the police commissioner, well-deserved respect, I might add. I think our police commissioner intends to do intelligent things. And if we don't need heavy weaponry, we'll probably not have it very long. But, I think that's still his call. So,
and as Mark brought up about the tear gas, they haven't used it in 50 years or
50
something.
years
and
anyway,
it's been gone, and like that whole thing about tear gas and all the people.
So much political theater, so little time.
Yeah,
it really is political theater. Now, one other item, which was, I think it's been misinterpreted far too many ways over, had to do with a oft repeated desire from city councilors to have their own legal counsel.
Oh, I love that one. Yeah.
Yeah. And, so I guess it was a late communication came back last week from the city solicitor pretty much saying, look, the charter says explicitly, I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, it obviously says you as city councilors get to hire 3 people.
Yeah.
City manager, city auditor, city clerk. Now we fudge it a little bit by allowing you to have a little say-so in who your council aide is. So if you want to have your campaign manager, be your city-funded political aide, the manager is not going to say no, right? Or at least I don't believe the manager would dare say no. So, but technically you're still not hiring that aide. The manager is technically still hiring the aide. Okay. But they actually want to have it be the case that if the city solicitor opines in a particular way, that in fact the city councilors could just vote to go and bring in their own lawyer.
But why does it have to be after the city solicitor gives an
It
opinion? Why can't it be before? It could be something.
It could be before. It could be before. Absolutely could be before. But
and they wanted, I guess the original thing said something about 2% of the budget or something. You're telling me the budget's $3 million?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, all right. And they brought up, I want to bring this up because I looked at it. Methuen, Fall River, and Newburyport. They have done this. Okay. Newburyport, 20,000 people population. Their legal department was 100,000. It was reduced to 95,000. That's their whole legal department. So the counselors who get only $5,000 a year, they were reduced from something crazy. So yeah, maybe they need some legal help.
So we have $80,000 full-time counselors working a part-time job with a city council aide, which were originally supposed to be, I might add, they were called research assistants.
I know. So now you've got, they're covering like $150,000 with salaries, and they want more help.
Right. So let's not hire somebody who actually is capable of research. Let's just, hire our campaign workers.
Let me just finish this. Methuen has 51,000 population, 9 counselors, strong mayor, right? That always makes a difference. The counselors there get 23,000. Fall River, 89,000, a lot of people. They get around $28,000 a year. So stop complaining about this.
I mean, cost of living is higher in a setting like Cambridge.
I understand that, but still.
So let's double those figures and whatever, right?
Even if you double them, there still doesn't come up to 85,000.
Listen, I am not.
I don't think Newburyport is cheap, but who knows?
Right.
I don't know.
Right. So anyway, so they want to have their own legal counsel, but it is now. I just like to think of like what if scenarios. Like, what if you have 5 counselors who have a strident position on something, and 4 counselors who have a strong opposition to it? According to this proposal, those 5 counselors could basically vote to go and hire a lawyer to support their position and bury those other 4, right? And then
it's not legally, I mean, even the city.
It's not binding anyway. It's just a legal opinion, right?
It's an opinion.
So ultimately, the city council has the authority to pass ordinances regardless of what the city solicitor says.
Right.
And regardless what the planning board says on zoning ordinances.
Apparently.
They can do that.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, here's an idea. Why don't you, if you really care so much about it, why don't 2 or 3 counselors pool your resources for the aides and hire a very skilled legal person?
Exactly. They have, I'm sorry. I know it's expensive to live here, but a lot of these they work full time at their jobs, but it's supposed to be a part-time job.
And it would be better if it was treated as such.
It really should be. I just think we have really created, the more it's more power. You just feel like, I don't know.
Well, yes, the city councilors now are also, in my view, rather quietly and behind the scenes have, sort of been consulting with this center that is looking at charter review, Collins Center. Basically letting their desires be known. So now there's a memo has come back, and there will be soon a meeting where already it's taken as a given that they gave like 3 possible options, the third of which was essentially off the table, basically saying there seems to be consensus that the councilors want this. No members of the public involved at all, and they've decided we think we'd like to change the government in the following few ways, each of which gives us more power, more authority.
Was this? I remember attending some kind of meeting with the Collins Center. Is this a report that has come out that they're,
there was the first memo, which
Okay.
basically just sort of said, well, here's the process that we might go through.
and they've already decided they like certain options or a
They're
option?
basically offering of just a few options about how they would go about it. They haven't laid out the specifics.
Isn't there
of
another
which
meeting coming up
charter-
or something with this
Yeah,
group or
But
something?
you know, but apparently the councilors are very warm to the idea of only have to run for re-election every 4 years rather than
Oh,
2.
is that where this is coming? Oh, my
yeah,
God.
yeah. And
Oh.
you know, and it's like, okay,
Mhm.
so let's just leave. You know, so in my view, our representatives represent 9 people at this point. They don't represent the rest of us in this city. They're basically just coming up with decisions and saying to the, you know,
Or
the
they
consult- their
represent the Harvard
consultants.
grad students. I mean, I keep
Yeah,
bringing them up
yeah.
because I just feel like they're like this whole constituency that's separate from the city.
Oh no,
Granted, some
you
of
know,
them may stay in the city, but a lot of them,
I honestly, I'm getting a kick out of those Harvard kids. You
Yeah.
know, every week it's like they've got their
I
little
know.
hobby horse.
they're
and
not
then, you know,
kids. Graduate. You should look them up, see if they're voters. I'm sure they will be
relatively
in
speaking,
November. Yeah.
believe me, I do.
I know you do. I love that you can do
Yeah,
that
yeah.
when people public comment. Oh, when did they last vote? Yeah.
So anyway,
All
where
right.
it
We have
stands
like
up,
last minute.
yeah, I think the legal counsel thing, the manager will come back and probably say more or less what the city solicitor said in the first
Right.
place, which will be that, and municipal
Yeah.
broadband will be yet another part of the warfare to explain why, in fact, we have to get rid of the planning charter and we got to get rid of this city manager and yada, 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 yada.
I
yada.
see.
So, you know,
Alright.
and you know, it's just going to be crazy rhetoric from now on. So,
Oh, it's an election year.
yeah. Anyway, there was a few other things, but I think that kind of
Yeah.
covers most of the
All
essentials.
right. So we
for
will
this
be
week.
back for our second Tuesday. No,
Yeah,
third
we're back.
Tuesday.
We're not going anywhere.
We're not going anywhere. So
Yeah.
have a good, take your mask off, walk outside. Don't
We
have
did.
anybody around you. We did. Yay.
Yeah, yay.
It was
See you
fun.
later. Actually,
Yeah, we still have a
we
few
have
more seconds,
a
but
few
we
more
will
rich
go.
seconds here.
Rich seconds. Goodbye. See you.
See you then.
Bye.